Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Episode. Here, kind of continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project. And it's been about 3 days since I talked about the Nintendo 64, and you know what that means. Robert's been working overtime, and we have a brand new core, improving some TLB implementations, speeding up some games, and giving us new games that are now playable. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well, and I promise I will not buy any jet skis with it. The joke being that Wave Race 64 Shindou Edition now works. We've had Wave Race on the core for a while now, but for the longest time you could not get the Japanese exclusive Shindou Edition with the Rumble Pack support working on the core, but in the most recent revision that Robert just uploaded, it now 100% works. This really doesn't have much whatsoever to do with TLB, but it is another game that we weren't able to play before without a lot of trickery, now just functioning, but it's also a great example of the status of this core on games that just work. If there is any difference between this game right now and real hardware, I do not think 99 out of 100 people would be ever able to tell. Maybe speedrunners who play this game exclusively might notice something that I cannot see, but for the most part, this is just the Wave Race you remember, except now with Rumble Pack support and now working in the FPGA core. And whatever controllers you use, including snack adapters or MiSTer Add-ons Reflex Adapt, getting Rumble into the controller is quite easy, and it gives you that real Nintendo 64 experience. This is one of those games that everyone has played at least once if they've ever played a Nintendo 64, and it is so indicative of what the final results of this core should be. Now, every single game does something slightly different, and for every game like Wave Race, there's going to be a game like Indiana Jones, which I will show you in just a moment. Not everything gets as good at the same rate, but something like Wave Race here today is just so indicative of the overall quality of this core. This is incredible work. All of this on screen on MiSTer FPGA in clean HDMI out at 1080p. You love to see stuff like this, and this was definitely a system seller when it came out. It showed off the power of the Nintendo 64, and even though by today's standards the water trickery they do to have that undulating water is quite easy, when this first came out it was nothing short of mind-blowing. And I love the art on the side of that jet ski there too. Looks like a 90s paper cup, and if you weren't alive back then you probably won't know what that means. But again, this is just so much fun to see, and a lot of people wanted the Shindou Edition because getting Rumble Pack support in Wave Race is fun. Don't forget, the Nintendo 64 didn't launch with the Rumble Pack. It came out later, and there was re-releases of some of Nintendo's most popular games, some that are Japanese exclusives, that added the Rumble support in. But of course, when it is a revision, other things can happen, and for some strange reason, this just did not want to work on the core without a lot of back-end trickery getting involved. But what I can tell you today is this: I give you a money-back guarantee. If you play Wave Race 64 in the current Nintendo 64 core, you are going to have a comparable experience to using real hardware, or your money back. But considering you pay me absolutely nothing for these videos, that really isn't much of a guarantee. All jokes aside, this is just spectacular. You can complete Wave Race 64, you can have a fun time, the frame rate is great, the controls are there, and now with the newest core we also have Rumble Pack support for the Shindou Edition. Now moving over to a TLB game, the last time I showed you Gauntlet Legends, we were talking about seconds per frame, not frames per second. A lot of the cache and other TLB implementations that would actually have this game run at full speed weren't finished yet. And what that basically means is all of those data set tables for TLB need to be checked against different things. And if it's not running at full speed, the amount of cycles it takes to confirm those checks can end up slowing the game down. Robert has definitely improved the core a lot, because you'll see here this is running at about what the Nintendo 64 would run at, and this was the previous core. It was an absolute slideshow. Now do be aware, Gauntlet Legends never ran at 60 frames a second on original Nintendo 64 hardware. It was definitely one of those games that taxed the hardware and did not run at a great frame rate, and that's kind of just part and parcel of some of the Nintendo 64 games. But here on the current core, it is a night and day difference, and I've loved being able to compare the footage like that just from one video to the other. You can absolutely tell how fundamental of a change the frame rate truly is. This game is now playable. I'm not sure if it could be beaten yet, I haven't checked, but I will check into that for the next video. But the music has improved as well, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds, and I'll be right back.
Avoid dangerous objects.
sounds so much better than the previous core, and it plays so much better as well. And big thanks to Andy D for doing this capture. When he was playing Gauntlet Legends, I was in IKEA with my wife buying a bunch of furniture and rugs, and I am happy to say we managed to not get into a divorce-threatening argument in IKEA. That is always a win. And this is what the core used to look like. It was just so incredibly slow. It was fun to see it execute, and you did get more graphics, but compared to what you see here on the current core with all of these different enemies on screen at once and the frame rate keeping up the best it can, it is just that much better. And again, I will check to see whether or not this game can be beaten. I haven't been on Discord recently, so much so that Adventure Taco told me I was slacking at get back to work. You heard it here first, folks. Apparently I don't make videos quick enough, but he really can't be trusted because he is from Wisconsin after all. All jokes aside, I told him I'd leave a mention in the video, so that was his. And Gauntlet Legends is another one of those games. So many people have been waiting for this one, and I'm here to tell you today, if you want to start playing Gauntlet Legends, it is working so much better, and maybe you'll be the person that figures out whether or not this can be completed. But tell me down below, did you play this game back in the day? There seems to be a lot of love for it out there. I played it in the arcades, but I've only recently started replaying it on Nintendo 64, mostly for core testing purposes. Now I'm going to have a video later on in the week for both Conker and GoldenEye fan games. You guys have been asking to see a lot more of this, and I was going to schedule it for today, but since we have a new core, I've actually moved that video around ever so slightly, so look for that probably Thursday or Friday. It's going to be a ton of fun. Now another game that is now working with TLB, and it's been working for like a week and a half, but has seen improvements, is Revolt. I'm never quite sure what to make of this game. There's going to be some Andy D captures in here, and there's going to be some of my captures as well from a previous core where it ran slower. The improvements on this are massive. It is running at such a better frame rate. Unfortunately, that does nothing for the overall controls in this game. It feels like it's out to punish you, especially if you go into the full simulation, but even in casual settings, the ability to spin out this RC car, bump it into walls, and get absolutely trapped in the environment is huge. This is the core from yesterday. Andy D's playing it. Watch the frame rate and the smooth fluidity of the motion. And now we're going to move over to a capture I did the day before that I planned on running, and I'm now just running as a comparison. They are relatively close, but as we get into this hallway here, the frame rate's definitely going to start lagging. And again, that just has to do with the different TLB table checks and how they're performed and how the speed is running in the core. If you want to play Revolt today on the newest core, you're going to have a much better experience as far as performance is concerned. But again, the controls on this one just always confuse me. You're bouncing out over the place. It's one of those games that's frustrating and difficult, but it doesn't really help you improve whatsoever. But tell me down below if I'm just not playing it right, if Andy D is not playing it right. I would be curious to hear who the fans of this game out there are, because I've never quite understood it. But from a technical perspective, when we talk about TLB implementations and how the core is improving, it is a really nice test to show you because it just got that much better performance-wise. And I love that Andy D basically decides to drive backwards in the game. It is that much easier to perform in this game if you're going backwards for some strange reason. As we move to the supermarket level, I will give the creators of Revolt credit for being creative. There's all sorts of different fun tracks, and because you are just an RC car, they don't really take place on race courses. They take place in environments that you see in the real world. Almost feels like that Atari Jaguar game. Is it Air Karts? I can't remember, where you race around inside of a house, except much better looking than a Jaguar title. But it is another one of those games I know people have been waiting for. It didn't used to work because of TLB, and now with the newest core patching up a lot of those TLB implementations and checks, it works that much better. But it does at least have a decent sound effect and some fun RC sound effects as well. So go ahead and listen for 30 seconds, and I'll be right back. I'm not sure what music you would expect out of an RC racing game, but it does sound good here. But here's a quiz for you. This is Revolt, and it's either running on the newest core or the previous core to this. Look at the frame rate, look at the motion on the screen, do some comparisons of what I just showed you, and you tell me down below, do you think this was on last week's core, or do you think this was on yesterday's core? I would be curious to see who can spot the difference. This one actually might be a pretty easy way to tell, but honestly, just give me a guess down below. But again, it's so much fun to see these games starting to work, and with the TLB implementations that we just recently got, see them working a lot faster. Now there's still TLB work to be done. It's only around 70% complete, and you will see more improvements coming soon. But one thing that recently started booting, and this is not in any way, shape, or form playable, is going to be the Indiana Jones game from Factor 5. Now, Factor 5 did a lot of strange things with the Nintendo 64 hardware that pretty much no other developer did, and that comes down to the microcode for some of the processors. There were ways to write microcode that would do different implementations with the hardware, but basically nobody used them. Factor 5 was very ambitious though, and did create their own custom microcode, and that's probably why this is not really doing much yet. But last time we talked about it, it didn't boot whatsoever, and I was calling it the last retail game in the North American library that wouldn't boot. Now today it is showing signs of life. Technically, Banjo-Tooie doesn't boot without a patch, and that's down to a certain security check it seems, but right now, so long as you have the right patched ROMs and the right core, the entirety over the North American library for the most part will at least show signs of life. Obviously this is wholly different than the wave race footage I showed you at the beginning of the video, but this was a game that would not show anything on screen when you tried to load it up, and now today you can at least see this very slow splash screen before the core ends up freezing, and I'm sure in the next core we may see some improvements from there. But don't forget, like I said earlier, I'm going to have a special video just of viewer request games that you wanted to see tested, including things like The Spy Who Loved Me Here, a GoldenEye fan hack, and that's going to come out either Thursday or Friday, so stay tuned for that. But if you have any other games you want to see tested, leave me a comment down below and I'll try to sneak them in. But I love how dense the AI in some of these GoldenEye games can be. We're standing right behind this villain right here, and he does not see us even when his buddy's shooting at him. It is pretty fun. It'll make a fun video as well. But that's the current situation on the Nintendo 64 core as of the recording of this video. Wave Race Shindou Edition is here, Gauntlet Legends is now playable, Revolt's gotten a lot better frame rates, and there's some other small improvements under the hood I didn't mention in this video. But you know, the next time a core comes out, I'm going to be making another video, but for now I'm going to go put that rug in the living room that I just bought yesterday. But the core is shaping up so well, and if you want to play games like Wave Race today, you're going to have a perfect experience. Sure to that, wait for that Conker and GoldenEye video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!